The first time Adrian Santos noticed Gabriel Villanueva, it wasn't because he was handsome. It was because Gabriel apologized to the office printer. The machine had jammed for the fourth time that morning, leaving half the architectural team scrambling to meet a submission deadline. While everyone else groaned in frustration, the new architectural designer crouched beside the printer, gently removed the crumpled paper, and chuckled. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the machine. "I think we're stressing you out." A few nearby colleagues laughed. Adrian couldn't help smiling. "You're apologizing to a printer." Gabriel looked up a little embarrassed. Well, it wasn't entirely its fault. Adrian folded his arms. "You're either the nicest person I've ever met or the strangest." Gabriel grinned. "I'm still trying to figure that out myself." That was the beginning. Neither of them knew it then. The architectural firm was demanding. Deadlines stretched into midnight. Coffee replaced sleep. Blueprints, client meetings, revisions, and site visits became their everyday lives. Without intending to, Adrian and Gabriel became inseparable. If Adrian stayed late to finish a drawing, Gabriel stayed too. If Gabriel forgot to eat, Adrian silently placed a packed meal on his desk. When one left for a site inspection, the other somehow found a reason to come along. Soon people in the office noticed. "There go the twins," one senior architect joked. "They even breathe on the same schedule." Adrian laughed. Gabriel only smiled. Neither denied it. Their friendship settled into a comfortable rhythm. Friday dinners after work. Long drives through the city with no destination. Arguments over whether brutalist buildings were ugly or misunderstood. Sunday mornings, however, were different. Gabriel always disappeared early. Church. Always church. One afternoon, while reviewing drawings in the conference room, Adrian asked casually, "You've never missed a Sunday service, have you?" Gabriel shook his head. "My faith keeps me grounded." "You ever question it?" Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. "Every day." Adrian looked up from his laptop. But questioning isn't the same as leaving. There was something in Gabriel's voice that sounded less like certainty, and more like pleading. Months passed. Adrian slowly realized something he wished he hadn't. He looked for Gabriel before anyone else every morning. A good day became better if Gabriel smiled at him. A bad day became bearable if they shared coffee afterward. Somewhere between ordinary conversations and ordinary moments. He had fallen in love. He hated himself for it. Not because Gabriel was a man, but because Gabriel deserved someone whose life wasn't complicated by loving him. So Adrian buried it. Deep enough that not even he spoke its name. Gabriel was fighting a battle of his own. Late at night, he often sat alone on the balcony of the apartment he shared with his older brother Marco. Marco had sacrificed nearly everything to raise him after their parents died. To Gabriel, his brother wasn't just family. He was father, mentor, and the person whose approval mattered most. One evening Marco broke the silence. "You're 29. Gabriel nodded. "I know. Elena asked about you after church." Gabriel looked away. "She's kind. She'd make a wonderful wife." Marco smiled faintly. "I think it's time you started your own family." Gabriel swallowed. Family. Children. A wife. Everything he had been taught was good. Everything he had spent years praying he could genuinely want. "I've been seeing her," Gabriel admitted. Marco's face brightened. "I knew you'd do the right thing." Those 4 words echoed in Gabriel's mind long after the conversation ended. The right thing. Then why did it feel so heavy? Elena Reyes was exactly the woman everyone hoped Gabriel would marry. Gentle. Patient. Deeply faithful. She never pressured him. Never demanded more than he could give. She deserved someone who loved her completely. Gabriel wanted to become that man. He prayed every night that someday he would. A week later, Adrian walked into Gabriel's office to borrow a scale ruler. Instead, he found an elegant velvet box resting beside Gabriel's laptop. His heart stopped. Gabriel noticed where Adrian was looking. Silence filled the room. "Finally. I'm proposing." Adrian forced a smile. "To Elena." Gabriel nodded. "I think it's time." Time. Such a simple word. Yet it felt like the end of everything Adrian had never allowed himself to hope for. When? Next month. Adrian reached out and gently closed the ring box. Then with more strength than he thought he possessed, he smiled. She's lucky. Gabriel looked at him for a long time. I hope she will be. That evening, Adrian drove aimlessly through the city until midnight. He parked overlooking the skyline they had admired together so many times. His phone buzzed. Gabriel, thanks for being happy for me. Adrian stared at the message until the screen dimmed. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. I'm not happy. I'm in love with you. Don't marry her. Instead, he typed only 3 words. Congratulations, Gab. He pressed send. Then rested his forehead against the steering wheel as tears finally escaped the silence he had kept for years. Far away in another part of the city, Gabriel read the message. He whispered to the empty room. I'm sorry. Though Adrian hadn't confessed. Somehow, Gabriel already knew. And that frightened him more than anything. Before Gabriel's wedding, the architectural firm announced its annual team-building retreat. 3 days and 2 nights at Azure Cove Resort, the HR email read. Attendance is highly encouraged. Adrian almost declined. The thought of spending an entire weekend watching Gabriel answer calls from his fiancée was more than he could bear. But his manager insisted. You've worked overtime for 6 months straight, you need the break. A break. The irony almost made him laugh. The resort overlooked a quiet stretch of beach, far from the noise of the city. As employees checked into their rooms, HR suddenly frowned at her clipboard. Oh no. What happened? Someone asked. There was a booking issue. Everyone groaned. We're short 1 room. After a few minutes of reshuffling, the coordinator looked apologetically at Adrian and Gabriel. You two are the only ones comfortable sharing, right? Neither answered immediately. Finally, Gabriel nodded. It's fine. Adrian forced a smile. Yeah. Inside, his heart was already preparing for disaster. The room was simple. 1 balcony. 1 bathroom. 2 single beds pushed close together. Close enough that either could reach the other with an outstretched hand. Neither slept much that first night. The next evening after dinner, the rest of the team gathered for karaoke. Adrian slipped away to the beach. He sat barefoot on the sand, watching the waves disappear into darkness. You always disappear when things get loud. Gabriel's voice came from behind him. Adrian smiled faintly. You found me. I always do. The words hung between them. Gabriel sat beside him. For a while neither spoke. Only the sea filled the silence. You've been avoiding me. Adrian laughed quietly. Haven't I been doing the opposite? You smile. You joke. But you leave the room whenever Alina calls. Adrian stared at the water. What do you want me to do? Gabriel didn't answer. I don't know. Adrian finally looked at him. Gab. If I stay, I'll forget she's the one you're marrying. Gabriel closed his eyes. You make this difficult. Adrian let out a bitter laugh. I make it difficult. I've spent years pretending my heart didn't exist. His voice cracked. I smiled when you told me you were proposing. I congratulated you. What more do you want from me? Gabriel whispered. I wanted you to stop me. Adrian froze. The waves seemed to disappear. What? Gabriel's eyes glistened. I waited. For years. I thought maybe one day you'd tell me not to leave. Adrian shook his head. You were going to choose your faith. My family. My future. What difference would my confession have made? Gabriel couldn't answer. Because Adrian was right. That night neither returned immediately. They walked along the shoreline until midnight. Talking. Really talking. For the first time. About loneliness. About fear. About how every goodbye after work had always lasted a little longer than necessary. About how both had silently memorized each other's coffee orders. About how loving each other had become the secret they carried into every ordinary day. When they finally returned to the room, the silence no longer felt empty. It felt fragile. Around 2 in the morning, a thunderstorm swept across the coast. The power went out. Lightning flashed beyond the balcony. Gabriel woke from a nightmare. His breathing was uneven. Without thinking, Adrian reached for his hand. "I'm here." Gabriel looked at him in the darkness. "So am I." For the first time. Neither pulled away. The following day felt stolen from another life. They explored the nearby town. Shared ice cream. Took photographs together. Laughed until their stomachs hurt. To everyone else, they looked like two close friends enjoying a company outing. Only they knew each smile carried the ache of an approaching goodbye. That evening, back in their room, Gabriel stood by the balcony. "I wish." He stopped. Adrian walked beside him. "What?" Gabriel whispered. "I wish we'd met in another life." Adrian looked at him for a long time. Then gently cupped Gabriel's face. "Maybe we did. And maybe we were brave enough there." Gabriel leaned forward first. Their foreheads touched. Neither spoke. The distance between them disappeared. Their first kiss was soft. Not desperate. Not reckless. Just heartbreakingly honest. When they finally pulled apart, tears had already begun to fall. "I love you," Adrian whispered. Gabriel shut his eyes. "I know. I've loved you too. For longer than I can admit." Those words should have felt like salvation. Instead, they felt like a farewell. The retreat ended on Sunday afternoon. As they loaded their bags into the company shuttle, Gabriel handed Adrian a small folded note. "Read it after I leave." Adrian waited until he reached home. With trembling hands, he unfolded the paper. It contained only a few lines. "If love were my only responsibility, I would have chosen you. But I cannot betray the faith that shaped me, the brother who sacrificed everything for me, or the family I still hope to build. Please don't wait for me. Please learn to hate me if that's what it takes to live. Gabriel." Adrian read the letter again. And again. Until the words blurred beneath his tears. Weeks later, Gabriel announced that the wedding date had been finalized. He smiled at work. He thanked everyone for their congratulations. He looked like a man moving toward happiness. But every time his eyes accidentally met Adrian's, there was only grief. For Adrian, the staycation had given him everything he had ever wanted. And then taken it all away. He had finally heard the words, "I love you." Only to lose the man who said them. The wedding invitations were printed. The church was reserved. The suit had been fitted. Years later, Jason and his wife invited them to celebrate another wedding anniversary. As they watched their friends dance, Jason nudged Adrian with a grin. "So, when did you know Gabriel was the one?" Adrian looked across the room. Gabriel was laughing, the same quiet laugh that had once made him fall in love beside a stubborn office printer. He smiled. "The first day we met." Jason laughed. "And what took you two so long?" Adrian intertwined his fingers with Gabriel's. "We had to learn that sometimes. Coming home takes the longest journey." And for the first time in their lives, neither of them had to let go. Everything was ready. Everything. Except the groom. Gabriel stood alone inside the empty church one afternoon after a marriage seminar. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, painting colors across the pews. He imagined Alina walking down the aisle. He imagined himself smiling. He imagined promising forever. Yet every time he pictured the face waiting for him at the altar. It became Adrian's. He shut his eyes. "Please," he whispered. "Take this away." The silence answered him. Adrian meanwhile had disappeared. He filed a leave of absence from work. His apartment curtains remained closed. His sketchbooks gathered dust. Friends knocked on his door. He rarely answered. One rainy night, the loneliness became louder than reason. He climbed to the rooftop of his apartment building. The city lights blurred beneath the rain. He stood at the edge. "Maybe, if I disappear, it will finally stop hurting." He stepped closer. Then his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Annoyed, he almost ignored it. But something made him answer. "Hello. Sir Adrian?" a nervous voice said. "This is Paolo, from the office. I found your old notebook in the meeting room. It has all your design sketches. I thought you'd want it back. Adrian looked down at the empty streets below. He closed his eyes. I'm coming tomorrow. He stepped away from the ledge. Sometimes life wasn't saved by miracles. Sometimes it was saved by an ordinary phone call at the right time. Days before the wedding, Alina invited Gabriel to a quiet cafe. She stirred her coffee without drinking it. You've been crying. Gabriel looked away. I'm just stressed. She smiled sadly. No. You've been grieving. Silence settled between them. After a long while she asked softly. Do you love someone else? Gabriel's hands trembled. He wanted to lie. He truly did. But he had spent too many years hiding. Tears escaped before words did. Oh yes. Alina nodded as though she had known all along. Is it Adrian? Gabriel's head slowly lowered. I tried not to. I prayed. I fasted. I begged God to change me. I chose you because you deserve someone good. His voice broke. I wanted to become that man. Alina reached across the table and held his hand. But you already gave your heart away. I never received it. Gabriel shook his head desperately. I can still marry you. I'll learn. I'll be faithful. I'll spend my life making you happy. Alina smiled through tears. And who will make you happy? Gabriel had no answer. She squeezed his hand one last time. I don't want a husband who spends every anniversary wondering about another man. I deserve more than that. So do you. She stood. I'm setting you free. No, Gabriel pleaded. We can still make this work. She gently removed her engagement ring. No. We can make it survive. But surviving isn't the same as living. She placed the ring on the table. Then quietly walked away. Gabriel never saw her again. A year passed. Adrian slowly rebuilt himself. He returned to work. Started smiling again. Started designing again. Though some nights he still unfolded the worn letter Gabriel had given him at the resort. He never stopped loving him. He simply learned to live with the absence. Gabriel resigned from the firm a few months after the cancelled wedding. He moved to another company. They never crossed paths again. Until one Saturday afternoon. Ron, over here. Adrian turned toward the familiar voice. It was his college friend Jason, the groom. I didn't know you knew the bride, Jason laughed. I didn't know you knew me, another voice answered from behind. Adrian froze. He knew that voice. Slowly he turned. Gabriel stood a few steps away, equally stunned. The bride rushed over laughing. You two know each other. Neither man could speak. Jason looked between them. Wait, you seriously never knew? Gabriel's one of my closest friends from church. And Adrian's been my best friend since college. The coincidence was almost unbelievable. The ceremony began. Throughout the vows, neither Adrian nor Gabriel looked at the couple. Instead, their eyes kept finding each other. Outside the church, beneath strings of warm lights, Adrian finally walked toward him. It's been a while. Gabriel smiled faintly. A year. You look well. I'm trying. So am I. Silence. Not awkward. Just familiar. Before leaving, Adrian spoke quietly. Would you have dinner with me? Gabriel hesitated. Then nodded. I'd like that. Dinner became coffee. Coffee became weekend walks. Walks became conversations. For the first time there were no secrets. Gabriel spoke honestly about his faith, his guilt, his fear of disappointing his brother. Adrian listened. He never mocked him. Never tried to convince him. He simply stayed. One evening, after dropping Gabriel home, Adrian handed him a small paper bag. Inside was a tiny wooden house, carefully carved by hand. Gabriel smiled. You made this. Adrian nodded. I wanted to remind you. Home isn't always where people expect you to live. Sometimes, it's simply where your heart finally stops running. Gabriel cried. Months later, Adrian stood outside Gabriel's apartment holding a single sunflower. No expensive flowers today, Gabriel teased. Adrian laughed. I'm officially courting you. Gabriel blinked. What? I never got the chance the first time. So I'm doing it properly. Gabriel couldn't help smiling. You know this might take a while. I know. I've already waited years. I can wait a little longer. Gabriel didn't say yes that day. Or the next. Or the month after. He needed time not to decide whether he loved Adrian because he always had, but to believe he was allowed to choose happiness. One evening, nearly 6 months later, they returned to the same beach where their company's staycation had once changed everything. The tide rolled in gently. The sky glowed orange. Gabriel reached for Adrian's hand. This time, he didn't let go. I spent years asking God to take you out of my heart. He smiled through tears. But every prayer led me back to you. Adrian squeezed his hand. So, Gabriel laughed softly. So, I'm done running. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. Does that mean? Gabriel nodded. Yes. Not because the world had become easier. Not because every question had been answered. But because love, when chosen freely and honestly, no longer felt like something to hide.